If there's one musical element you could add to make your blues playing sound more authentic, it's 7 chords. Now, today I'm going to show you how to play a 12-bar blues progression using 7 chords 3 different ways. So we're going to start with the open chords, like that, for A7, so that would be A7, D7, and E7. Then we're going to move it into the bar chords like this, the larger shapes like cage shapes, like that, or like this. And then finally we're going to look at the shell voicings. Now I'm going to give you 2 very simple shell voicings from the 6th string root for a dominant 7, and from the 5th string root, so that you can do things like play like that. So let's start with a blueprint sort of roadmap of the 12-bar progression and layout. The first 4 bars will be the 1 chord, the A7, and I'll get into the shapes after we do this blueprint. So first I just want to talk about the actual layout. A7 for the first 4 bars, that's the 1 chord. Bars 5 and 6, you go to the 4 chord. Bars 7 and 8, back to the 1 chord again, right? Bar 9, we have E7, 5 chord, bar 10 to the 4, and then bars 11 and 12 usually have some sort of turnaround the last 2 bars, so we'll go back to the A7 for that. So that's the overall layout of the 12-bar blues. Now, I want to mention here that the 7 chords are the default in the blues. They're not decorative, they're structural. So they're pretty essential to the actual sound creating that tension in the blues. And they're also really cool tonally in that when you have a 7 chord, you could play the minor. You could also play the major. So that's a really cool stylistic option to you, and that's something that every blues player likes to play around with. So first, let's look at the open position chords. Now, this may be simple to you, but either way, it's useful just to go back and practice these chords if you're a more advanced player, and it's always good to work on that 12-bar blues form. So let's get right into this. First 4 bars, we have A7. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, D7, 3, 4, right? Bars 5 and 6, back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, E7, 3, 4, D7, and now A7, 2, 3, 4. We would have some sort of turnaround there, which we'll work on in another video. Today I want to focus specifically on these chord shapes and being able to move them across the fretboard so that you can back anybody up in the blues style. So let's talk about the shapes and zoom in a little bit here. We have A7. Now that looks very similar to your A major chord. We have the G open here, the G string. So that's actually our flattened 7th, and that's how we convert major to dominant there by bringing that flattened 7th in for the A chord. Next, let's look at the D7. So the D7 looks similar to your D major chord, almost as if it was inverted, right? We're switching a note here. So typically on the D chord, you have the root on the B string. Well, we're going to add in the flat 7, so that's 2nd fret on the G string, 1st fret B string, 2nd fret high E string. With the D string, that's your D7. Now the E7 is another great shape. It's very similar to E major. We're just going to lift the ring finger off so that you have the D string open. Now in the open position, it's a little harder to play rhythmically because you have to do a lot of string muting. It's hard to slide in. So you don't have as many rhythmic options, but it's still very worth learning at the beginning stage just to understand the 12-bar function and form. Next, let's look at some bar chord shapes for these dominant 7 chords. This is something you would definitely use when playing with other people and backing them, especially in a group when you want to include these low bass strings, right, to get some chunk on the bottom. So the A7 looks very similar to your A major chord here. All we're doing is lifting the pinky. I'm pulling it out. I don't want you to pull your pinky out that far, obviously. Keep it nice and close and relaxed. And that's going to be the bar chord. So again, what do we do here? Well, we remove the root on the D string, and now we're playing that flat 7 there. Great. This is our E shape bar chord here, A7, the E shape. Next, let's look at the D7 here. So this is going to be an A-shape bar chord. This is a 7th chord built off that 5th fret of the A string here. That's the D note. So this is your 4 chord, D7. You'll notice very similar again to the major chord. We took the root, the D, and put it there. That's our flat 7. Now you'll see how this already, going like a little ahead, there's our shell voicing. We'll get there. But we're starting here with the bar chord. This can be moved up for E7, which is nice. These are movable. Like that. So that's really cool. You can slide in. You know, slide down. With that little chromatic feel, that's a lot of fun as well. Let's talk about one more bar chord shape here. It's going to be the C shape, and we'll use it for the E7. You can use it for both. This one looks a little bit funky, so I'm going to talk about the actual fingers here. Let's play the root with our ring finger, 7th fret of the A string. We'll play the major 3rd here, okay, with our middle finger, so that would be 6th fret of the D string. Again, there's our shell voicing, pinky on the 7th fret G. That's our flat 7. And again, there's our root up top. That would be 5th fret of the B string. It's really great practice to think about where the intervals are in the chord when you're playing these large shapes. So you're starting like root, the 5th, the flat 7th, the major 3rd, like that, going up to the 5th, and the root. That's something that you definitely want to think about when you're playing all these shapes. It's just really helpful to better understand the fretboard and just, I don't know, increase your connection to it. So now let's play through the 12 bar blues together using the full bar chord shapes. I want to do a little variation here where we take the second measure, second bar of the 12, and we put a 4 chord in there. So this is a really common variation that I like to use because sometimes it gets a little boring hearing the 1 chord for the first 4 bars. I think in the context of something like Crosswords, where it's like fun to listen to. You know, like that's really interesting to listen to, but if you're playing here, it gets a little boring. Same with the bar chords. At this stage, it can get a little boring hearing the same chord for 4 measures straight. Eventually, once you know inversions, things like this, building around these larger shapes, that can make it interesting, and that's sort of more like jazz comping, I guess. It's a little maybe beyond the standard blues playing. So in a later video, we'll touch on that, but today I want to focus on the basics. All right, so let's play through this one together. Tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, A7, 4, D7, 3, 4, A7, A7, D7, D7, back to A7, 3, 4, A7, 2, 3, 4, E7, D7, and then we'll do A7 for 2 bars. Okay, this would restart, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. The most realistic thing you can do right now is just keep it simple. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. You want to make sure that your timing is solid, because if you don't have the timing there, you don't really have much, right? You're not going to be able to play with other people in a jam session or in a recording or anything like that. Even if you're playing with yourself and looping, you still have to be in time. So finally, let's take a look at shell voicings. Now, a shell voicing just strips down a chord to the essential tones. So for a dominant 7 chord, you're going to have the root, the major 3rd, and the flat 7th. Let's talk about what that looks like. For the A7, well, we have the root here, A. We talked about this before. The flat 7 is here, 5th fret. That G note, 5th fret on the D string, right? And then our major 3rd is right there. That's 6th fret on the G string. So this shape applies to anything rooted on the 6th string for a 7 chord. Let's go to the 5th string. So this is actually a really easy transition to make. We're gonna move right over to here for D7, okay? So we have the root, 5th fret on the A string, the major 3rd, 4th fret on the D string, and the flat 7, 5th fret on the G string. If we're going to the 5 chord, you just move it up 2 frets like that. So let's play through the 12 bar blues together using the shell voicings. Again, this time we're going to substitute bar 2 for the 4 chord. I'll do a 2 bar count off like last time. Let's play it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1 chord. 4. 1 chord, 5, 4, and 1. So you'll notice I'm using my fingers, a combination of the pick and the fingers, and the reason I like to do this is to get a more interesting syncopated rhythm that's not exactly on the beat. It helps establish the shuffle feel. I'll dig into it a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. You can use your fingers as well. The nice balance here is the bass note Of course, if you're looking to play over this pattern and accompany yourself, you can use the A minor pentatonic or the A major pentatonic. In fact, I would recommend bouncing back between both of those. Let me show you what that sounds like. Just loosely, not even in time. A7, going to the D7. If we go to the E7, definitely take some time to explore what the pentatonic scale sounds like over the 12-bar blues. As always, I hope this video was helpful. I try to keep these videos as practical and to the point as possible. So if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss another lesson. I'll have a downloadable PDF on my Patreon for you to follow along. If you're interested, go check it out. If you're struggling with any of these concepts, remember that I do offer free consultation lessons for new students right over Zoom, so check out the link and go to my website and book one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.